Yeah, thanks very much. My understanding is that each side are going to have 6 minutes, which is part of a dialogue with the Minister where we pose questions and we seek to get answers. Minister, thanks for that's what I understand was agreed with the Business Committee. So Minister, thanks for your outline of the importance of the National Broadband Plan. We've heard about this since 2012 and its importance, and we all know the importance, and certainly the people without it do. And that has been my motivation throughout this entire debacle, to try and ensure that we get a bidder that can provide, or a contractor that can provide the service to those 542,000 homes. My concern about all of this is to try to understand the motivation of the bidder throughout this rather unusual interaction with the former Minister. I, for the life of me, can't understand the necessity for all the meetings, the phone calls and the private dinners. And I'm not raising any issue in relation to the previous Minister on this, but I just wonder what the motivation of the bidder was, and I've been concerned about that for some time. Now, Mr Smith in his report looks in a rather bizarre way at just one side of the equation. He just seeks to understand whether or not there has been some influence exerted, and he adjudges at the end of it that there wasn't and there couldn't, because he accepts that on at least 3 occasions where there were private meetings, that no discussion took place in relation to the National Broadband Plan, and he relies on the statements, we understand, of the bidder and the former Minister. Now, I don't know whether that took the form of just a questionnaire or whether he had face-to-face meetings with those concerned to establish the facts about that. Maybe you can advise us. But for me, Minister, there's one document, and you did say that in his 4 tests he looked at all appropriate guidelines and procedures. Well, I want to highlight one particular guideline, the communication protocol between the Department and external bidders. And it sets out very clearly under 2 headings, one on canvassing, and it says that the following prohibition on canvassing applies, and it says direct or indirect canvassing by a bidder, consortium member, bidder member or their suppliers or advisors in relation to the project or the procurement, or any attempt to obtain information from any of the agents or employees of the Department, its political representatives or its appointed advisers concerning other bidders or a solution to a final bid tender, or procurement in general is prohibited. And it goes on to give a remedy for such action, and it says any breach of this section will entitle the Department to immediately disqualify the bidder concerned. Now, Minister, if we had a situation where there were more than one, or there was more than the remaining bidder, you full well know that their lawyers would be down in the courts now arguing that the particular bidder, who has clearly breached the canvassing rules, they would be arguing that that person be excluded from the process. Now, when you consider that at least one of these dinner meetings in Mr McCourt's home took place while the 2 previous bidders were in the race, I find it astonishing that Mr Smith didn't recognise a significant breach of the rules of this document. And it's the same in relation to Section 7 of that document, the separation of functions within the Department's divisional units. And it sets out it is recognised that the day-to-day functions of the Department in carrying out its remit may involve engagement with stakeholders who were bidders in the process. Now, Mr Smith relies on that to suggest that some of the meetings were casual in nature. Well, they were. But the reality was that there were 3 that weren't and couldn't come under this heading. And it goes on then to say that the following protocol will apply in respect of any such communications. Officials from the Department will not at any time discuss the NBP procurement process outside the NBP team. Now, we have direct proof that this happened at the meeting in New York. So am I, and I'm posing questions. I've posed a few, and the Minister will respond. And officials from the Department will not at any time discuss the NBP outside the process. We know, based on the minutes from the meeting in New York, that in fact that happened. So that put the person concerned in a very invidious position, actually, because they were expected to take minutes to discuss something outside the process. Now, the final question that I have for you, Minister, which is, it's reported that the Programme Director for the National Broadband Plan tweeted the following this weekend in response to an article posted by the Sunday Business Post. A decision on the only game in town will hopefully be made in the next couple of weeks. A lot of theoretical nonsense. These guys have no understanding of the telecoms market, which is very complex, as you know, and we have just dropped nearly 20 million getting the best advice possible from people that don't understand, that do understand telecoms. Now, the account in question has tweeted, I understand, just about 5 times since its creation. Now, the communications protocol that I outlined earlier states that the following: as a general matter, members of the NBP team shall not discuss or communicate in any way matters relating to the procurement outside of the NBP team. I'll conclude on this.
Deputy, the Minister won't have an opportunity.
That's okay, he'll have plenty of opportunity. It goes on to state where communications with third party takes place, whether oral or written, or however, involving a member of the NBP team, the NBP team member will state that they cannot discuss any matters relating to the procurement process. So, Minister, a couple of things on that. Can you confirm that that person is in fact who they say they were on Twitter, or have you carried out any investigation to establish that? And do you believe that it's appropriate for the programme director to engage in this kind of communication at this stage in the process? And why did the programme director take it upon himself to make these unsolicited comments? Thank you very much. You have 42 seconds to answer.
Yeah, well, just to deal with them, some of the issues quickly. I think to be what the auditor concluded wasn't that he wasn't able to conclude that no discussions took place. He concluded that that was one of the areas that he could not confirm, because he only had, as you say, access to the statements of those. However, what he then did was he indicated that such meetings that weren't minuted or where there wasn't a witness gave cause for concern. But then when he considered them against the 4 tests, he was satisfied, as I stated, that neither the Minister nor Mr McCourt had the opportunity to influence the conduct of the tender process. So he didn't assert that he knew what took place at the meetings. In terms of the protocol on communication, he had access to that in its entirety, that protocol. So that was one of the issues against which one of the documents to which he was aware.
To conclude, I apologise.
Yeah, and finally, just to say that I acknowledge that tweets occurred that were attributed to the director of the programme. They shouldn't have happened, and they will not happen in the future. And all engagement with the media will be managed through the press office. But I would say that the individual concerned has been very passionate and energetic to try and deliver and develop this project. So I think that is fair.
Okay.